traditionally, sorry, I didn't put on here agencies. Temp. Okay. So traditionally, the way to look for a job back in, the Stone Age when I was younger, you looked in the newspaper, because the World Wide Web didn't exist yet, and computers took up, your whole house. So you looked in the newspaper, or you went through an employment agency, or you went door to door. Now with internet, that's opened up a bit. There's still classifieds in the newspaper for employment, and those are still pretty viable and legitimate. And not only are they in the print version of the newspaper, but they're in the online version as well. So if you went to Orlando Sentinel, for example, you could either have the hard copy of the paper and look for a job, or you could look on the web. Sunday's usually the best day because it's the biggest paper that gets distributed. So they put most people, if they're going to only choose to advertise for like one day, they'll do it on Sunday. So that's still viable. Then you have online employment websites like Monster, Hot Jobs, Career Builder. I would say that 85% of the jobs that are on there are legitimate. There are some not legitimate job postings online. Company websites. So let's say, for example, you wanted to work here at Seminole State, you go directly to the Seminole State website and there's a job listing. Those are always 100% reliable. If you know the company, if you know you want to find a job at Target, you go to Target's website and look at their job listings. If you know you want to work at Abercrombie in the mall, you go to their website and you look at their job listings. That'll always be the 100% reputable. Craigslist has job listings, and I'd say it's about a 50-50 on those, or even less. A lot of scams on Craigslist, and you might think, well, how is a job a scam? They want you to pay a fee, or they want you to do work but that you never get paid, or they'll say, oh, well, just register on this website and you'll be guaranteed to make $1,000 a day and stuff in envelopes or something. And so just be careful. And then door to door, I put iffy, not because of their scams or anything, it's just because so very many people don't accept applications that way anymore. So if you do go, let's say you go to the mall and you hit all the stores in the mall, a lot of them are going to tell you to go online, that they don't take applications in person anymore. So that's kind of iffy. And the only way to know that is to call or go ask them directly to see if they take applications in person or if they do it only online. If you do go door to door to try to apply for jobs, dress like you're going to an interview. Because if you go in there and ratty shorts and a ratty old t-shirt and asking if you can get an application if they're hiring, they might tell you they don't do applications even if they do, just because of the way you look. So you always want to, if you're going in person to look for a job, you always want to dress as if you're going to a job interview. Dress very nicely, because then they're more inclined to give you that application. So just be aware of that too. So they might tell you they don't do applications even if they do, but that could just be based on their initial first impression of you going, oh no, we don't want that person. Yeah. Okay, if you're looking at classified ads, these are some of the abbreviations, and this is only some of them. I think people invent abbreviations like every day. I think there's somebody that's their job, is to just invent abbreviations and then teach it to all the teenagers for texting. Because I certainly don't know them. But the big things you want to know is if it's full-time or part-time, so that's the FTPT. If it requires bilingual, that's the biling. If you can't speak another language, then don't bother to apply. Bilingual is a requirement. If it has experience on there, experience is a requirement. If you've never done that job before, they're requiring experience, it's not don't waste your time, really. Agency is an employment or temp agency. Now, some employment agencies charge the boss, the company that's hiring, and some employment agencies charge the job seeker. Before you go to an employment agency, you want to find that out because you don't want to necessarily pay them money until you've done your research. Temporary agencies or temp agencies, you don't pay them. Temps, you get hired on as a temp, and what that means is you don't work for any one specific company other than the temp agency themselves, but you get sent to different companies when people have called in sick or are going on vacation, end up in the hospital. If they are in between employees for whatever reason, somebody quit and they haven't hired somebody new yet. And so you end up a lot of different places, but a lot of times they'll do a temp to hire. So companies will hire a temp as a way to test you out before they hire somebody permanently, because if they put you in there as a temp for 2 weeks, they know if you can do the job well or not. So temps to hire happens a lot. So those are other ways to go. And now employment agencies, just if you have to pay them, doesn't necessarily mean they're not a good agency. You just want to do some research, because some agencies do cost money, but they can, you know, if you're looking to relocate, they can help you find a really good paying job in another city or state that would be very difficult for you to find on your own. So they are good at that. Questions so far? So employment agencies, we talked about those for just a second. Some of them specialize in specific fields, like there are employment agencies that only find jobs for people in the health field. So nurses, doctors, physical therapists, whatever. There are some that only find jobs for people that are into advertising and marketing, or only people that are financial planners, or, you know, some like that, that are specific to a certain field. Those are usually probably the better ones because they're specialized. And so if you were an employer and you were looking to hire someone, let's say you wanted to hire someone in advertising, you wanted an advertiser, somebody that can write ads, you would most likely go with an employment agency that specialized in that area than an employment agency that went across all the areas, because you'd be more likely to get a high quality employee that way. So if you are in a field where the employment agencies are specialized too, and you have a choice between a specialized employment agency and a general employment agency, you choose the specialized one. You'd probably get a better job because a higher quality of employer is going to be, or there's going to be more to choose from. Some of them do charge fees. Actually, I shouldn't say that. They all charge fees. It just depends on whether they're charging the employer or the employee. Some of them do charge the employee. And then sometimes the employers are willing to pay that fee. So that gets listed as fee paid. Your resume, and we're going to go over some resume writing in this unit to help you guys with that. But your resume is basically, it's a 1 to 2 page maximum. Usually they prefer 1 page, but 2 page maximum list of your education, your previous job experience, your qualifications, but not like if you worked at a place, you don't write a paragraph about what you did for that company. You just write the days that you worked there, and then you list your qualifications, like I know Microsoft Office, I'm proficient with, you know, internet research, and I know how to run a cash register, or, you know, whatever. Those get listed separately, not with the individual job. But we will go over resume writing so that you can have a little bit of a basis for that. Now there's 2 kinds. There's a resume and there's something called a curriculum vitae. And a curriculum vitae, it'd be like what I use as a teacher. It lists not just my jobs and my education, but any papers I've published, any awards I've been given, any memberships I have, like National Association of Teachers of Mathematics, things like that. It's longer. It's much longer. My CV is like, I want to say 7 pages now, because you go into detail on a CV. On a resume, it's very short. It's a summary. It's brief. On a CV, a curriculum vitae, it's all the details. You want to get as much information as detail as possible. So that's the difference between the two. For most of you, resumes.
So who else uses those besides teachers?
Anybody that's in sort of a more academically, psychiatrists, psychologists looking for jobs would do that because they publish papers. Like researchers, scientific researchers, it's sort of more that kind of line, because you want to list any publications you've had or any awards you've been given. So it's usually more academically related jobs, if that makes sense. Your W-4, you fill out, and we're going to go over those too. You fill out, every time you start a new job, you have to fill a new one of these out. And this is what you're indicating how many exemptions you're claiming for your taxes. It affects the amount of money that they take out. And I'll go over some details with that for you, but you have to fill those out whenever you do a new job. It's for income tax purposes. It's the law. And then benefits are any additional compensation that you get on top of your salary. So if you get health insurance, if you get dental, life, disability coverage, if there's a retirement plan, if there's stock options, employee discounts, that's a benefit. Anything that's on top of your income is considered a benefit. And you want to take those into consideration when you're looking for jobs too, because if all things compared, you have 2 different jobs that you could take, and one gives you health insurance and the other one doesn't. Take the health insurance job. You know what I mean? You want to weigh all of that. So Julianne found a job listed in the classified that pays a yearly salary of $41K. What is this weekly salary based on this annual salary? Okay, so first of all, $41K is $41,000. And bless you, there's $41,000 per year, and there are 52 weeks in a year. So we're going to divide by 52 weeks, and she's going to earn approximately $788.46 per week. Okay, so we have an annual salary of $67.3 thousand. So that is $67,300. And her monthly pay, if we divide by 12, I can't do that in my head, which is just kind of sad. $5,608.33. Okay, this is how a lot of times the structure of the employment agency fees will work. So the job is $395 a week, and the fee is 20% of the first 4 weeks' pay. So you can figure this out one of 2 ways. I can either do $395 times 4 and then take 20% of that, or I can take 20% of the $395 and then multiply it by 4. And you'll get the same answer either way. So I like to do the 20% of the $395 because then I'm multiplying a smaller number. I'm just weird that way. So I'm going to take that $395 and I'm going to multiply it by 20%, but of course I can't multiply by 20%, so I have to do $395 times 0.2, because remember we move it over 2 places. So that is going to be $79 a week. And then there's 4 weeks that you have to pay for. So Dylan's going to have to pay $316, which is almost a full week's pay. Here's how it works. The first 4 lines are $56. That's what this means. So if this is the base cost for up to 4 lines. This is the equation for the cost of any lines over 4. Okay, so if I have 12 lines, I just need this. Okay, so the cost of a 12 line ad is going to be 6 times 12 minus 4. So it's 56 plus 6 times 8. So it's 56 plus 48, which is 104. So this ad is going to be $104. All right, I'll go over it real quick. Percent change, new minus original, divided by original. 4 ads are $3.50 each. 1 ad, $3.95. Subtract, divide, you get 11.4% savings. 25 ads, subtract, divide, you get 32.9% savings done. Okay. This is one of those things where it can also be sort of like a judgment call. But all right, we have $29.95 to print 200. I'm sorry, this should have been 177. I think. Let me just double check myself. Yeah, it should have been 177. They charge $30 to print 200, or 39 cents each to print individually. So which is the better, the bulk pricing for $29.95 for 200, or individual pricing at 177? So we're going to do 177 times 39 cents and see how much that ends up being. Okay, so even though he doesn't need the whole 200 copies, and actually if I had just put 77 in, what would it have been? Oh, no, I don't think it was a typo. I'm sorry. I thought it was a typo, but I don't think it was. If I did just 77 copies at 39 cents, it's $30.03. 200 copies are going to cost you $29. 77 copies are going to cost you $30. Yes, you may only need 77, but do you think it would make more sense to buy the 77 individually or the 200? Yep, you're spending 8 cents more to have just 77. But what happens if you send out those 77 resumes and you don't get a job? Okay, I'm going to recommend you take the 200. If you don't need them because you get your job, you can always recycle them. Always recycle them. But let's say you send out 77 resumes and you don't get a job, then you're going to have to get more copies.
Isn't that like really bad?
No, not at all. Not really.